storytellers. And my dad is particularly a great storyteller. He grew up as an orphan through war, and he has the most riveting, amazing, heart-rending, and funny and horrifying stories, and he'd always just tell me them. So I really come from that tradition of oral storytelling. And Chester is one of the best storytellers I've ever met. He's just so great, and he's a decent angel in my life, such a wonderful person. And when he came out with Paying for It, the graphic novel, in 2013, I was just like, what? This is amazing. Very few people were talking about decriminalization of consensual sex work. And I had made 2 movies with an American director, John Cameron Mitchell. He did Hedwig the Angry Inch. I played Kwang Yi. Give it up for Kwang Yi. And then also I was one of the leads in Short Bus. Super great, super great. Did you see John's New York Times essay this past week? You gotta read it. It's so good. He's an executive producer on this movie, and he's always been a mentor and a dear friend to me. So, I'd been making movies. Short Bus was a radical illumination of so many things in my life. And in Chester's graphic novel, he kind of draws a parallel between queer liberation and the struggle for consensual sex work rights, for decriminalization of consensual sex work. And to me, this resonated. And it also, I extrapolated from that, it was about labor rights and women's rights and human rights. He had the wherewithal to go, after I had, made the proposal of, hey, let's open up the relationship, not really knowing what would happen. If you're gonna pay for sex, be like Chester. He's a very good client, right? He tips well. He treats people with respect. So just do that. But anyway, what was I gonna say? There was that kind of analogy that I felt was really important, and that's what really was the inspiration to try to do that. I thought it would be easy because he's brilliant, and there I was like, oh, there's a storyboard. It's the comic, no problem. It's gonna be easy. So my first version of the script was like verbatim, the entire front to back. This is very different. It's a polemic. It's a political treatise. Politics front. The last quarter of the book are tiny little handwritten notes, like all about, questioning romantic monogamy. Just because you love somebody doesn't mean you care about them, more than if you pay for sex or what have you. Like just endless historic and intellect. He's an egghead. I'm not an egghead. I'm pretty smart for a dumb person. And he's like very detached, and he's funny. He's super funny. But I kind of lead with the heart. And so the first version, verbatim, we both looked at each other and we went, this is terrible. And we realized that graphic novels are not movies. And so, I was saying to him, movies, 3-act structure, they're about, human beings who make choices, flawed people. We see the repercussions, they're flawed. He's like, but I have no flaws. It's true, he's very arrogant. Like, he says, his pal says. It really took, the better part of 10 years to write the screenplay. Because, it was just such, I did one where there was all this, he was like on a podium and he was ranting and saying all of this, academic treatise stuff. And it would have worked like as a Jean-Luc Godard movie in the 70s, political essayist film, but not now. So I had to keep going back to the drawing board, and I was working on other stuff, and then I'd review it again. And it was only until I noticed that he had seen a sex worker on my birthday. I still haven't overcome jealousy. I did outgrow my own ignorance through the experience of this, but I'm still jealous. So when I saw that, I was like, hey, that was my day. Where are you going? And then I was like, aha, okay, there's this other thing going here that he didn't include. We stayed together for years, living in an 11-foot wide row house, me pursuing the culturally approved of way of dating, perilous dating, and then he was paying for sex, but we were also negotiating our lives together. And in kind of embracing more of what was happening between us and my story in parallel to him, I was able to, instead of telling people about, the ideas, kind of showing kind of the difficulties that I had, throwing myself at love. Love me, please, please. And then realizing that I kind of had to learn to love myself. So there's so many different love stories here. And then I kind of, the sex work, and that's a super important part of it, but it's sort of within the scaffolding of the structure.
Well, speaking of sex work, the film shows it in such a humane and respectful way, and I'm just curious, like how you approach kind of making sure that the characters were humane and authentic. And
yeah, again, drawn from real life. We're all humans. I think stories can be very reductive, and then suddenly it's hero and enemy, that sort of thing. So when you're working with the life material, there's something that's so nuanced that it feels very real, and it's like the cliche of the more specific you are, the more universal the story is. So all of these people are amazing people, and so for this, again, working with John Cameron Mitchell on Short Bus taught me a lot about reciprocity and proper ways of making things. You wish to make a good movie, but you want to have a good process at the same time. And so in that movie, he cast people who from the New York Underground that are alive. There are people, and we were originally like the union were like, no, you have to just hire SAG people. And so he had to really go, pitch the idea and make sure that he could cast a lot of the, I was a non-actor. Many of the cast people were non-actors, and he was finally able to embrace the real life people to play versions of themselves. So I knew that I would have the same kind of challenge. I knew that I wanted to cast people with a touch and sensitivity for sex work. And that meant a lot of non-actors who are my friends. All of the people that play sex workers in the movie either have a variety of experience. Some are brothel owners, some are former escorts, some are current sex workers, and all of them have, they embrace sexuality in their expression. They're all artists and activists. And so I cast them, and I had to lobby the Canadian ACTRA, which is the union. And I knew that I'm kind of on the shit list too, because I've never joined, because I only ever get gigs acting in my friends' weird art movies. So, and that would be off limits if I did sign over. So I, wrote this letter, in this day and age, it's important who gets to tell the story, etc. And Valerie Scott, who's this amazing sex work advocate, she was somebody that I really leaned on. And she wrote a fantastic quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It was basically, so if you don't let Sook-Yin make this important movie, we will kill you. So it was like, okay, no problem. Just all the other roles have to be ACTRA. So then, that was cool. And so from the ground up, making sure that people have the right, they also elevate the material. They go, okay, this is wrong, this outfit, blah, 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 blah. Andrea Warehunt, who plays Denise, she's a longtime collaborator with Chester. She cites Chester's memoir as being the inspiration for her to write her own memoir, Modern Whore. Andrea went on to be the consultant in Honora. She was a consultant on paying for it. I would pass the scripts to Chester and Andrea just to make sure I was on the right track. And they have a long collaborative history together. He acted in her short film, Modern Whore, and did the poster. And then she's working on her feature. And then there's about 4 people in the cast who play sex workers who are also filmmakers who deal with sex work in their movies. So just doing my due diligence. I'm a broadcaster in Canada, and I do a billion interviews. So I just spent a lot of time talking to sex workers, hearing about the minutiae of their lives, letting that seep in, play with my imagination, talk with people like Valerie Scott, who struck down in the Supreme Court of Canada anti-prostitution laws in 2013. Yeah, it was right. You want to go woo, woo, but at the same time, the next day they're like, yeah, you win, but we have made a new law, and that is criminalizing paying for sex. So it was a hollow victory. And so sex workers, it's still a challenging job, and their work is even more challenged by the fact that they have no rights, and if things go off the rails, they have no one to call for help. And in fact, sometimes, as we see here, the people that you call for help end up, trashing your place and taking your money. So, it's a challenging time. When Chester came out with his book, nobody was talking about this. Now there are sex work orgs supporting consensual sex workers right across your country, my country, and in Belgium 2 years ago, they decriminalized consensual sex work. 2 months ago, they gave them full rights of labor. So they have all the rights that any worker has, dental, medical, holiday pay, child rearing, this sort of thing, which is progress. And then at the same time, we're in this incredible time where there's progress and regress, and I know the heck what's happening here. Where our reproductive, essential rights that are wonderful, that we've kind of taken for granted, are being stripped, and we must really, really hang on to those and care for each other. So I think there's something about care, and there's something about community. This movie was done on a dime, and I didn't have a lot of money, so I shot in my house. So I wake up every morning on that set of my house, and that pillow that the couple are lying on, that wasn't my parents' pillow. When I ran away from home at 15, I was like, I grabbed like a frying pan and a pillowcase, absurd, and that pillowcase is what they're lying on, what I lie on. So and Winchester's in the basement, that's where he lived. And so I dialed into my whole community in Kensington Market and shot my friends' spaces. I was like, Daniel, Lucas, your place looks like a brothel. They're like, yeah, we think it was. Because people knock on the door and they're like, does Lips still work here? Okay, cool. Used all their stuff, their bed, cleared out the musical instruments, called on my neighbors who have galleries and restaurants. They're like, no problem. All those music videos are by amazing Canadian independent bands from back in the day who were groundbreaking and so incredible. Cub, Gob, Pointed Sticks, and those are amazing videos that do a lot of the heavy lifting for the production, because those are real. And then I found the only independent boy band, VIP. And they were like, those are amazing videos, amazing songs.
We're gonna open it up.
Okay.
We have time for one question.
Oh God,
so it's gotta be a really.
I'm so sorry. It's I'm such a blabbermouth.